Hello and welcome to another episode of The Cool Karnis. This is your host and host, Sanjeev Kulkarni. Today's guest is Sangeetha Singh, and this is our first live interview, so I'm very excited. Friends, it's only normal that we will get complacent in our job after a few years of working in the same kind of an industry. Monotony sets in. And what we typically do is we'll pick up some passion or something to keep us interested on the side. But the question is, what do you choose as your passion? How will you stand up to that challenge, and to what length are you willing to go to pursue that passion? That is what today's podcast with Sangeetha Singh is all about. So let's dive straight in and meet the cool Karni, Sangeetha Singh. Hello, Sangeetha.
Hi, Sanjeev.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here. And it only took a few years, but we're here finally.
Yes, finally.
Congratulations, by the way. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Had been a lot of pent up thing in my mind that I had to do something like this.
Yeah.
And finally, with the inspiration, all of you friends, I have taken a first step in this direction.
Wonderful,
so let's see how it
wonderful.
goes.
Very excited for you. Very happy for you. And upwards and onwards.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Sangeetha, I'm very excited to have you as a guest on this show.
Thank you.
As I had mentioned, the theme of this show, Cool Karnis, is about people who have stepped beyond their stereotype, beyond the work that they have done, and pursued their passion, pursued their interest, and made some big name in that field.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
You are a classic example of somebody who I know, but I know you. But for our audience, how would you introduce yourself?
No, thank you. Very humbling words, Sanjeev. I'm Sangeetha Singh, by the way. I am a plain Jane IT professional. That's my day job. That's what I do for a living. But outside of my day job, I do have a few interests and passions that I pursue. Includes modeling, doing small bits and pieces of, playing instruments like the African djembe, and things that I want to pick up as I go, give room for having more excitement and action in my life. Probably another girl next door. Nothing jazzy, but interesting to know that you had a great intro than what I did.
No, you are clearly missing out a very important aspect of your introduction. Do you want to give that bit of your introduction again to all of us?
As in, you're talking about my beauty titles?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. So I guess as part of my interests of having pursued modeling outside of my day job, I do have a few different pageant titles associated with me. I have about 5 international titles, including Mrs. Australia Earth, Mrs. Continents Australia, Mrs. Planet Australia, Mrs. Australia Oceania, and I did Mrs. Earth a couple of times as well. So a few different pageants and few different titles, but that's all I got.
Oh my God, hearty congratulations to you on that.
Thank you very much.
But I have to ask you this question then.
Sure.
How does a Delhi ki chori become Australia ki Vishwa Sundari?
Oh my God.
How does this happen? Vishwa Sundari hai, right? I mean, Australia, planet, Australia, so it's Australia ki Vishwa Sundari.
I like how you coined it. I think Vishwa Sundari makes it sound more interesting than a Mrs. Australia planet.
There you go. See, Sundari is Sundari. Isme koi Mrs. nahi hota in my opinion.
Correct. Fair enough. See, Delhi ki chori heart mein, abhi bhi Delhi ki chori hu main. Although I was born in Chennai and brought up in Mumbai and Chennai, Delhi is where the heart is. But having said that, I think life teaches you a lesson to, get away from the obvious that is trying to kill your motivation. And I think it's about, being able to listen to yourself and do more. I think that's really been the biggest learning, and that's what has helped me transition from where I was, specifically from a perspective that I don't know, you've not seen me in my teenage years.
No,
I was probably the most tomboyish person that anyone could have ever come across. So having that transformation even within myself, to be moving from a tomboyish state to get to a point where you think, oh, I can dress up and I can start looking dainty and pretty and all of that stuff, was a journey in itself. I wasn't comfortable with that transformation for starters. It wasn't natural. It felt a bit forced. But then the reality was that I wanted to go and do something that was different to what I've been used to doing, purely because I wanted to push the envelope and experience what it feels like to be someone that you're not, you've not seen yourself to be. So I think that is the start of the whole transition from Dilli ki chori to whatever you said it is.
Australia ki Vishwa Sundari.
Vishwa Sundari. I'm going to remember that for life. That's a good one.
Thank you. But delve a bit more into this. I mean,
Sure.
when does and you were a tomboy when? This was in Delhi growing up, college years were all in Delhi.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So how does that journey happen? What instigated at what time? When you were that, did you ever think that you will be looking at something like this? One day you're going to be a beauty queen. Was there some aspirations?
Yeah. I don't think there was any intent at that stage to move into anything like this, especially in the beauty field. I almost thought that it's just off-putting to be going into something that makes you look pretty, for starters. However, if I recall my childhood years, I would actually sit and watch every episode of Miss Universe without fail. Now that I sit and recall, I think that's what I can remember. I vividly recall once my uncle asking me, why don't you compete in the Miss Universe competition? When I was probably 16 or 17. And he used to live in the States. He had come to visit us. I was like, this just sounds so odd. Why is he asking me about this? Like, it just doesn't mean anything to me. So that came and it just passed away. But the reality is, I guess, the transition piece is, it probably came to the fore when I was in Pune. And by that time, I think I kind of finished about 15, 16 years in the IT industry, having spent a fair bit of time in there. And I almost got to the point where it burnt me out because I didn't find any motivation further to, look forward to growing in the professional ladder, because that was not my goal for some reason. And I'd lost interest in doing my day job. And I was at a point in time when my son had turned 2 years old, which means you're just coming out of the whole ding bang of, becoming a mom and, having the pressure of bringing up a child and all that stuff. So life for me had become very, very boring. And in some sense, I was actually lacking identity. And the third thing was I was lacking purpose. So I really couldn't connect with any of this beyond that point. So it pushed me to a corner to then do an impulsive thing, to go and do something that is completely, someone would not imagine that I would do in my life. So I just wanted to get out and do something different, right? So that was the starting point of all of this. Much to my husband's amusement, I went and told him that I'm going to go and get a modeling portfolio done. And I remember the shock on his face because, again, you've not seen me during those days. I was this buzz cut, looking lady with no, poise in her stance and all that jazz. And I simply said, I'm going to go get a photo shoot done. And to my surprise, the photo shoot actually ended up being a very good one. And I got some very different pictures of myself. And when I look back at it, and I was like, oh, wow, I could look like this as well. So that's where the motivation kicked off. Like, it kicked in, it started building interest from there on and started picking up interest from there on, and so on and so forth. So I would say, simple answer to your question is, it was a very impulsive start. To just get out of the rut and do something that you've never done before.
So 2 questions here.
Yeah, sure.
Firstly, what's your uncle's name?
My uncle is Manikandan. He's Money. He's called Money.
Money. Okay. And do you by any chance remember where you got your photo shoot done?
I got this done in Bombay.
Okay.
Mumbai.
But you know which studio or whatever?
We rented out a studio though. And so we got it. Interesting, right? So this is my first photo shoot ever. I got introduced to a photographer through my sister-in-law. And he came and said, oh, your hair looks very regular, normal. You got to do something with your hair. And then I was like, okay, tell me what I can do with my hair. And then he says, go to this salon in Mumbai. It was called Juice Studio. Some of you might know it. And he said, go get a global brown color on your hair.
Okay.
And I had never put dye on my hair ever before. And then this juice salon and all this jazz, I was like, oh my God, this is like life-changing. And then I went to the salon, plush salon I've never been to before. Like, you've got chairs that are like coming up and you could rest up and get your hair washed and all that fun stuff. I was like, man, this is life. I remember this was just like such a unique experience.
Like, I want this life for a longer time.
Not really. I didn't think I wanted it for a long time. What I really was enjoying was the fact that it was just so very different to anything that I had experienced. And then the person comes and says, what color do you want? And I'm like, go global brown. Oh, he's like, do you have a photo shoot? I'm like, yes, I do have a photo shoot. How do you know that you all that jazz? And that's the first time I got my hair dyed. And then when I look back at the photos, it looks stunning because when you have brown in your hair, the light actually reflects on your hair. So it gives a bit of a tint to the whole image. That's why people go brown on their hair for most of the shoot options.
Wonderful.
So things like that, right? So yeah, I mean, so the point is like I got my hair done for the very first time, and then I got taken to a costume, not designer but a stylist per se. Now I didn't know what a stylist is ever before. A stylist is a person who obviously helps you put stuff together with your clothing and accessories and stuff like that. So this dude, he's like, and he's this total Punjabi guy, and he's giving me all the accent of having stayed in Bombay but having the English US accent and stuff like that. And he's really flooring me with stuff like, oh my god, you look so gorgeous, we'll put you in this, we'll put you in that. And he picks 5 outfits. All right, and then I look at these outfits and they're all like very wanky stuff, like I would never wear it, like off the street sort of thing. Anyway, so we get all the stylist stuff going, and then we decide to go to this location. Absolutely rundown building.
Okay.
Rundown building. I can't remember the location in Mumbai.
And rundown building of Mumbai, so we can really imagine what it will be like.
And then I'm thinking, my husband had actually accompanied me as part of that trip. So we stayed overnight at this really dodgy place. And the dude actually comes in and he says, do you know Subhash guy used to get all the guys and, they used to stuff them in rooms here before they go to the shoot. I'm like, this does not sound right. This does not sound right at all. At that point, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing or not. Like, I was almost nearly willing to quit at that stage. But anyway, we sailed through the night. We had fun. And then next day was the shoot day. So we go into this dodgy building. To my surprise, there's absolutely nothing in there. There's just a plain black room, and that's it. And then a makeup artist arrives. He's got this huge kit. I'm like, do you need so much to do makeup? Like, that's the first ever time that I look at a makeup kit, which is like, he's got like several things. It felt like, a magic hat of magician.
Something
stuff is just coming out. But then the photographer puts me in these outfits, and we just had like a small podium up there, and he just changes the lighting and he does really wacky stuff. And then the photos he showed me was just mind blowing. I was like, in this really rundown place, you could actually create magic out of nothing.
Yeah.
Magic out of nothing. And the reality is, at that point, I didn't even know modeling. I didn't know how you pose. I didn't know what to do. But I could just bring my own self, bring my own aura, feel different, and, feel myself for the first time. And just that bit really brought so much magic to the photos. And I was like, man, this is something. This is really, really something. And that's the first time I think I ever realized that I absolutely love being behind the cameras. Absolutely love it. Like, to this
You
day.
mean in front of the camera?
Behind the lens, in front of the camera.
In front of the camera. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. That's where it all started. And
Wonderful.
One thing led to the other.
So we have to thank 2 people. First is we have to thank Money Uncle. Thank you, Money Uncle, for inspiring and putting that seed into Sangeetha's mind.
So true.
And
yeah.
Second to, what did you say was the name of?
You're gonna test my memory with the name of the photographer who I can't recall.
You said some name of a salon. Juice Salon. If it's still there in Mumbai, if anybody in Mumbai knows of that, please comment. Juice Salon in Mumbai, because they chose the global brown, and that is probably the reason why she's now a global or a Australia Vishwa Sundari.
Oh my God. I remember the photographer's name, by the way. His name is Kunal Lakhani.
There you go. Thank you very much, Kunal Lakhani. And from the sound of it, it looks like, for any aspiring person who wants to be a model, probably the first thing you're suggesting is that go get a portfolio done, because that can really change your perspective.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Yeah, I think that true that. I mean, that's the first ever time you really experience what it means to be, behind the lens in front of the camera and get a feel for, how you look behind the camera. So I think it's important to get that exposure before you actually sign up to doing any shoot, for that matter, whether it's product or endorsements or anything of that nature. It's a great experience, and I think it's a great way to network with the community, including the photographers and the makeup artists and everyone else who gets involved in the whole process, including people who manage the studios and stuff like that. So I guess most of the stuff that I do today is owing to the network that I've created. So like I said, one will lead to the other. People will know each other, and if they like working with you, they'll call you again and again. Absolutely. So I think getting a portfolio done is a great start.
Wonderful. So from that first portfolio that you got done when your son was 2 years old, so in a way, I'm giving your son's age away here, which was 16 years ago, up to now, where you have 5 titles under your belt. How does that happen?
Good question. I think the way to put that in a single word is probably persistence. Yeah. There's a lot of things that go behind the journey. You get there are several times you sit back and you think whether this is something for me, only because you get rejections, you get told off. People think that you're not made for this, which is a very common thing people get irrespective of the field that you're in. I think I got that in my day job many times. So it's no different to that. So I think the point I'm trying to make is, even if it's your passion project, it's very easy for people to come and tell you you're not made for this. But the reality is, if you stick to it, and if you have persistence, and if you keep doing small things, little things at a time, take baby steps and keep going, I think it'll lead you to some point, right? And that's really the linchpin of my story, right? So there's nothing else to it. And just to continue that and give you a little bit of a perspective, after I got that photo shoot done in Mumbai, things did not go anywhere for the next 2 years. It just did not go anywhere. I tried to get a number of different shoots in Mumbai, and I was only interested in print modeling back then. So print modeling is anything to do with photo shoots for any products, right? So product endorsement, basically that was the thing. Now,
but like newspapers and that kind.
Yeah, that's right. Newspapers and digital, promotion campaigns and all of that stuff. The reality is, and this, at least things would have changed now. Back in the day, at least in India, the modeling industry is still, I believe, wasn't an organized industry as such. And it was very difficult for anybody, especially a mom at 28, to get a modeling gig, right? So I remember I used to wake up at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. in the morning and actually ride from Pune to Mumbai for auditions. And I did that like for almost 6 months. For a number of different times, only to be rejected every single time. So I would come back home rejected and dejected that, oh my God, I did not get this gig. And it's very interesting because one of the things that happened during that time was, I won't name the company, but I got called by the company for an audition. And I remember, it was the same 3 a.m., 4 a.m. start. I was extremely sleepy. I just couldn't, even find my feet to go there. The audition was at 12 o'clock and I reached at nearly, 2 or 5 minutes to 12 was the case. I was all rushed up. I was, I had my heels in the car. I just took that and I rushed upstairs to meet the gentleman who I was meant to meet. So I was sitting there. This gentleman comes and he introduces himself and says, he brings another couple of people. And then he actually points to me and he asks the other two people, a girl and a guy, do you think she's of any use?
Oh my God.
And I'm like extremely shocked. I'm like, how do you ask a question like that? I'm not an object for starters. Like, there's a way to ask a question. And both of these people look at me and they kind of just dismiss me like that, saying that, nah, and they walk away. And then the guy says the audition is over. And I remember it almost that whole, couple of minutes just froze in time. And it just felt like time has stretched for so long that I want to kind of exit this phase now. So I had to step out and I asked her, like, I then pulled the lady aside and I asked her, what's wrong? Like, why you still haven't even looked at anything? Why are you saying that I've not gotten the job? And she says, look at your eyebrows. You've not even done your eyebrows properly. You're not wearing your heels. I said, I'm wearing my heels. I've got it. I've just driven 4 hours to get to you. And I have it in my hand. You didn't tell me to get ready to, show you whatever I needed to show. And she says, you will never make it in this industry. That's what she said. And it really hurt me. It really hurt me at that point in time. And I was like, I'm trying so hard. I don't know what's wrong. Maybe it's not meant for me and stuff like that. I remember going back home, crying in the car for the next 4 hours, just thinking about how somebody could just kind of dismiss you even without assessing what you're capable of. And I almost thought, okay, maybe this is not for me. That's how I came back home. And then I said, I'll see what happens. But then I remember for a couple of weeks after, I really did not do anything about it because I was just so upset that somebody could tell me something like that. And the fact that it was not the fact that they rejected me for the assignment, but the fact that they actually just dismissed me asking, is she of any use? Like, what do you mean by that statement? Like, good news is that company shut shop after a year. And it was a big name in Mumbai back then. But yeah, so that's what it is. But I think, again, back to your question, how does this journey come along? I just persisted even at the back of it. I said, okay, even if people say I'm useless, I still want to do this because this is what I like doing.
Where was the strength coming from? How were you able to motivate yourself time and time again?
Interesting. So I guess, again, Bombay was a very different story. Pune was a very different story. I didn't get a lot of gigs there. I really struggled. I honestly did not go anywhere after that photo shoot. Interesting stuff happened when I then moved to Australia. And then a lot of these uni kids, especially RMIT and, Swinburne and all of these kids are always looking for people to come up and help them with their assignments. So I just decided to go and help one girl out for her assignment. So that was the real start after I came to Australia. What I figured out very quickly was that the industry here is much more organized, whether it's media or comms or anything. It's much more structured. People are respected for who you are. And whether it's a paid assignment or not a paid assignment, you're still given the same respect, right? Now, whether it is in the way they treat you or whether it's in the way that they actually take care of you when you are on the set, to everything else, right? So I think I found that extremely refreshing. And one of the things which really worked for me in the country is the fact that they found that I am exotic looking. So just a couple of months ago, somebody told me that you will never make in the industry. And then everywhere that I went, people said, oh, you've got exotic looks. I'm like, what does that mean? That sounds interesting. Exotic sounds fun.
There you go.
And so I paired up with a lady who was actually doing her first year uni assignment. She was a photographer who wanted to only shoot in black and white. But her whole theme was she wanted to shoot wedding designs, but not contemporary wedding designs. So she actually collected some 15 garments from all her older family members. So there was this beautiful Spanish wedding gown, which was about 25 years old, but like, plush silk and stuff like that. So I actually got to shoot in that one.
Wow.
And incidentally, she won the Photographer of the Year award for that year. And then she put an exhibition. And the one photo that she chose to put the blow up of was my photo.
Wonderful.
So we all got invited to go to the exhibition and, have a look and stuff like that. I remember I took my husband and my son. My mother-in-law was here, mother-in-law and father-in-law. So I took them with me. And it was just like a stunning experience. I was like, I have never seen a blown up photo of mine ever anywhere.
What was that feeling like? I think you just explained, but, from one point, like you said, where you're dejected and you go crying back for the next 4 years, to fast forward, you come to a point where you see a blow up of your, how was that feeling? What did it feel like?
I think when you badly want something and it happens, at that point, your emotion is zilch. You just go blank. And I think that's the best feeling, right? And I was just telling my husband about this in a very different context. People who are religious specifically, oftentimes you're tempted to go and ask for something from God. Right? Or whoever, if you think universe is your thing, then you want to ask something, But there are times when you go visit a temple or when you go visit a church or when you go visit a mosque, you have this feeling of absolute nothingness.
Yes.
So there is that urge and there is that, anticipation till you get to the deity to say, oh, I'm going to ask this, I'm going to ask that, I'm going to do all of that stuff. When we actually enter the sanctum sanctorium, you have this moment of bliss and you're like, I need nothing from this point onwards. I don't know if you've experienced that before.
Yes, I do.
It was exactly that feeling for me. Like when I saw that, actually, that I could go to the exhibition and see myself in a photo that I couldn't even recognize myself in. I was like, I just felt nothing.
Wow.
And that was just pure bliss. That was just pure bliss. So I think that's the way to put it.
Wonderful. I want to continue this discussion a bit
Sure.
more, but I'll lighten this up a bit.
Sure.
तो यार आपके माँ ने क्या खा के पैदा किया आपको? Is it idli dosa or is it chole bhature or is it vada pav? यानी क्या किसका नतीजा है ये?
देखो हाथ माँ और बाप दोनों का है. Okay, तो
चलो ये बताओ दोनों ने क्या? हाँ.
मैं डैडी को अकेले छोड़ूंगी नहीं, तो उनका भी कंट्रीब्यूशन है. नहीं बस इडली डोसा, क्योंकि मुंबई में थे तो हम सभी खाते थे, तो वड़ा पाव भी खाते थे और पानी पूरी भी खाते थे, है ना?
मैन, ओके, मुंह में पानी आ रहा है अभी.
इट्स अ हेडी मिक्स, चेन्नई, मुंबई और दिल्ली का खाना.
हाँ, ये एकदम खतरनाक मिश्रण है ये. But are you a foodie?
I mean, who doesn't like food? If somebody is saying that they don't like food, that's and I think the word foodie is a little abused, to be fair. सबको खाना पसंद है और मुझे भी खाना पसंद है.
क्या बात है यार. But then अभी तो यार मुंह में पानी आ रहा है. So tell me something.
Sure.
चेन्नई का खाना अलग टाइप का है. अच्छा, let me take one more step back. जिसको आंसर ऑब्वियस होगा फिर भी पूछ लेता हूँ.
Sure.
Street food or more like घर का खाना types?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Both.
Thought so. But let's stick to street food. घर का खाना is घर का खाना at the end of the day. Because that will not change wherever you go, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Because घर का खाना, even when you're in Mumbai or in Delhi, you're going to have the same घर का खाना.
Correct.
So what changes is the street food?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Talk to us about this. What is different?
What is different? See, in my personal opinion, and you might pick a fight with me, there is no chaat under the sun like Delhi chaat.
Nahi. I will pick up a fight with you, but not on camera. We'll do that later.
मेरे को लगता है दिल्ली जैसा चाट कहीं और नहीं मिलता. That's my personal opinion. But having said that, I think what I like about Mumbai chaat is it feels a lot more non-commercial. I don't know how to put it that way. Okay, it feels more like done from the heart.
So दिल्ली दिल वालों की है, लेकिन मुंबई वाले चाट दिल से बनाते हैं. That is the point.
और दिल्ली वाले थोड़े कमर्शियल बनाते हैं कि तुम कस्टमर को कैसे खुश करें. It's not like मेरे को कैसा अच्छा लगेगा. I think मुंबई वाले वैसे बनाते हैं, मेरे को कैसा अच्छा लगेगा वैसे मैं खिलाऊंगा या खिलाऊंगी. पर दिल्ली वाले आपको कैसे अच्छा लगेगा मैं वैसे खिलाऊंगा या
पहले आप. अच्छा.
I think
that's a very interesting perspective.
That's the way I look at it in terms of the subtle difference. But yeah, chaat is chaat, man. Come on.
But if you have to pick favorite, first I'll say pick one favorite, and then I'll say pick three favorites of three regions.
I mean, deathbed food is pani puri. Without mincing words there.
Okay, but then pani puri like what? The Mumbai wala or
no, Delhi wala.
Mumbai wala.
Dilli wala.
Like the puchka style.
Yeah, puchka style. Okay. Suji, saunt लगा के and the तरह का मिर्ची वाला पानी.
हाय मुंह में पानी आ रहा है यार. Okay, chalo. So now for three favorites from three places.
Mumbai pav bhaji is my favorite food, by the way. Like I do not miss pav bhaji anytime I go there. And in fact, like we used to go to MG Road in Pune for only having pav bhaji.
You know?
So I absolutely dig it. Like that's again another deathbed food. So from every culture, I've got one deathbed food. So
तो वही पूछ रहा हूँ मैं. So tell me the next now.
So Delhi probably. See, I would any day die for a curry of some sort. Like lababdar is my absolute favorite. Put anything in it. Put anything in it. But lababdar and that Mughlai style food, you don't get anywhere else in the world, I suppose. So that's Chennai full meals. Give me a plate of full meals, I will eat it 3 times
Everything,
a day.
Yes. I know.
Give me that variety. Like it's just such a treat to every, all senses. So that's the whole idea. So
wonderful.
I love it.
And of course, see, apne liye to comfort food is always going to be some India wala food,
Correct,
whichever
correct,
region we come
correct,
from.
correct.
But you have had now the chance to travel the world thanks to your pageants, and we'll get to that in a bit.
Sure.
What food habits did you see, or did you pick up something from there that you kind of still continue, you love it, and anything you want to suggest?
Interesting. I actually made a trip to Bulgaria a few years ago for a pageant as well. Interesting trivia about Bulgaria. They're very big on eating potatoes. So the reality is they actually eat potatoes 3 times. Their breakfast is very potato heavy. I don't know for what reason. So they do everything with potatoes, fried, boiled, and other like barbecued, that style, and so on and so forth. And it's a country which actually boasts of very good rose. So they make everything out of rose, perfumes, jams, pickles and stuff like that. So that's one thing. And the third bit is pickles. So as in like more like jam, and it's like our mango chutney sort of a thing.
Okay, rose chutney.
Rose chutney, and then they make
rose chutney khate.
Rose chutney khate. Good one. You got these good one-liners, don't you? The other thing that I really was fond of when I went to Bulgaria was cherries. Now, because I went for a pageant, and typically in a pageant, you're staying in a decent 4-star, 5-star resort, you have access to only the buffet breakfast and lunches. Now, in a pageant, that's a no-no, because what you don't want to do is eat a lot of food.
Correct.
So I wasn't left with a lot of options, because again, they eat a lot of, it's a meat eating country. So they either had potatoes or they had meat in all their meals. So the only 2 things I had was cherries. I just ate like kilos and kilos of cherries. And the second bit is, like our raita, cucumber raita, they do a soup, a cold soup, which is basically a buttermilk, dill and cucumber, grated cucumber.
Interesting.
So that was the bit that I survived on. So I would go and
they eat it like with
cold
a meal,
soup.
or
they actually they drink it like a cold soup. So I pretty much survived on these. I just pretty much survived on that for lunch. I would go and get like 4 or 5 helpings of just that cold soup. So I think what I picked up, to answer your question, is whenever I make raita, I put a little bit of dill in it. It just elevates the flavor. So you could either do dill, or obviously you would put coriander if you're desi. But if you want to opt out of coriander, another a herb to add is probably dill.
Dill.
So yeah.
That's an interesting suggestion. But khane ke topic pe hai, to I have to ask you this.
Sure.
So now, in this kind of a regime or a routine that you have, of course, food and nutrition plays a very big role.
Sure. Yeah.
How do you balance that, especially when you're a foodie?
I mean, there's no other way but to resist from eating. That's the only way. I'm not going to mince words there. There are periods when I'm not prepping for a competition, but then when it gets closer to a particular competition, and you have to understand the fact that everyone's body changes as you grow old. Right? And the older you grow, the tougher it is to maintain your body size. And that's the reality, right? Unless somebody's, looking to put some external stuff on themselves, or use external, there's so many, external help available today to do stuff to ensure that your body remains in shape. I'm not one of those. I do not advocate of that, right? Natural stuff. And it always has been for me for that. But then what that means is, I do have to work harder as I grow older.
Work as in work, or work out, or
work on myself a little harder, which means obviously, 2 times going to the gym is non-negotiable. I've been doing that for probably 2 decades now.
Every day?
Every week, 2 times a week.
2 times a week.
Yeah. So that's non-negotiable. And then obviously simple things that you can really change to alter your diet during prep time to a pageant or photo shoot. Just increase your protein and completely zero out on sugar. That's all you need to do, right? Those are the only 2 changes or tweaks that you really need to do if you want to get to that point. But otherwise, I think one of the things I keep telling my trainer again and again, and I've been with my trainer for the last 12 years, is that I want to be able to eat everything and still maintain my body. So I'm not this person who will starve myself to death, because it's not viable, right? But at the same time, I should learn how to live with this, because there are going to be periods when you're going to be traveling, or you don't have the option to have the kind of food that you want to have. Then how do you manage around it? right? So again, addition, like I said, as you grow older, it's just tougher. So you have to do more stuff to keep your body in shape.
Right.
So I've added 10K walk every day to my routine. And I've
10 kilometers every day.
every evening before I go to bed.
Wow.
That has been transformational. That really has been transformational. And again, at the age that I am, there's going to be a lot of hormonal hits in different ways. But then I can't let that, suffer.
Stop.
It's either stop or suffer the way that I manage myself. So I think some things like that. So it will not remain constant. You just have to see what works for yourself, but also keep making tweaks. Some things will work at a certain age, some things will not work at a certain age. So then you have to try and different things to see what works. But your food, you have to control. There's no other way. I wish I could give you a simpler answer.
Sorry, dosto. I mean, there is no easy way out of this. So food has to be controlled. That is the message. Especially after talking chart, after talking food like this, I think the best thing to do is just change the topic. Because otherwise it's going to be difficult. So I'm intrigued. Let's come back to the pageants, right?
Sure.
Growing up, first of all, this was very new for us, at least growing up as kids. I'm not saying that Miss World, Miss Universe, Miss India didn't exist, but probably that's all we knew.
Sure.
But now, when we hear your titles, there's so many titles. So I have a two-part question to this.
Sure.
First is help us understand what are these titles and how do countries compete, what happens as a run-up to it.
Sure.
And the second part is I'm really keen to understand what is the difference between a Mrs. title and a Miss title.
Yeah, okay. All right, cool. Only because it's simpler, I'll start off with the second question.
Okay.
Difference between Miss and Mrs. To compete in the Mrs. category, you need to be married. So that is the basic criteria.
That obvious one, I know.
Well, you asked the question, so I have to tell you. Some audience might not know. So
okay. Well, for those of you who didn't know, Mrs. means you're married. Miss means, well, I don't want to sound wrong here, but supposedly in this at least beauty pageant category, Miss means you're not married.
Yeah, correct. You've not been married or you've not had a child. That's the basis of being in the Miss category.
Oh my God.
And the Mrs. category is like you're either married, divorced, you have kids, and so on and so forth. So it encompasses a lot more in that sense. Yeah. Now, in terms of the format of the competition, it's pretty much the same. So what you expect to see in a Miss competition, it's exactly the same in a Mrs. competition as well. What I mean by that is, the rounds that you prepare. For instance, you've got an evening wear, you've got a swim wear, you've got an interview round, you've got a forum. A forum is nothing but an avenue to kind of talk about a charity that you support and what work are you doing to help the communities and so on and so forth. So if you look at the format of these competitions, they're very similar. But I think the competition obviously kind of weakens when it gets to the Mrs. category because there's not much uptake as you would see. Like in a Miss of the world of any nature, there are thousands of candidates, right? But when you look at a Mrs. category, it's not even hundreds, which is a shame. Because I think it's important for women to come out and get that experience. And I can assure you that it's been life-changing for very many women who've been part of that competition. So I'll tell you why in a sec. But yeah, the format is pretty much the same. So the only difference being what I talked about, and the fact that the numbers vary across both of these competitions. So that's one thing. And also the representation in Mrs. category from the certain types of countries is also very limited. Because I think at that age where you're married and you have children, there is a lot of hesitation for women to come out and do something like this. So that also hinders the participation and the numbers from certain countries. So that's another way. Sorry, what was your first question though?
The various types of the pageants that you named.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So see, like with Miss competition, you have got a Miss World, you've got Miss Universe, you've got Miss Asia Pacific, you've got Miss other bits and pieces. It's exactly the same thing. Having these different competitions really gives you the opportunity to basically compete at international level, but for various titles. Yeah. Now, the fun fact that you should know is, and I take this with a pinch of salt, people, is men are hungry for power, women are hungry for crowns. So,
do you endorse this?
I don't endorse this, but I have a feeling that it's an addiction. Once you go to a pageant, you want to go back again and again because you want to compete. You want to win. You want to compete. You want to win. So this is something that I've come up on my own, that I feel that women are hungry for crowns.
There you go. But I would put it in a different way. Maybe crown is what you get at the end, but women are hungry to compete and win.
Yeah,
So
fair enough,
that's
fair
absolutely
enough.
fine.
Yeah, sure.
The end result may be a crown, that's all.
Yeah. I'm almost telling you that was also the reason why I have been doing so many.
All right. I missed that point in the middle of that. Okay. But then I have to ask you, why did it stop?
Because I've shifted my focus to doing other things. Because I've had enough experience of it, and I've had my fun times with it. Now I feel the need to do more, something else. It's really that which is driving it. That does not say I might not do anything down the line. It might happen. It might come a few years down the line. Suddenly, it might pick up again. Who knows? But for the time being, I'm thinking I just want to probably try my hand at other things.
Maybe what you should try is you can be the pioneer who can say that, and then you'll start a grandma kind of a, Grandma Australia and Grandma World. All right.
There is that category already, by the way.
Really?
It's called classic. So they do, and I do have to. I don't know if you know, Australia is probably the oldest beauty queen ever in the planet.
Wow.
Yeah. So she won the Australia, I think, Earth or some title. So that belonged to Australia, and she's 60 plus.
Wonderful. When was this? Was it?
This was probably very recently, in the last 5-6 years.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
We'll find out more, and if anyone knows, please comment and tell us who this wonderful lady is, and congratulations to her.
I'll tell you later who she is.
Yes. Okay. All right. This flow is actually very, very interesting. But in the interest of time, we'll take this a pause here, and we'll continue the conversation in a part 2. So please don't go back. We'll have a part 2 of this. So Sangeetha, while we get ready for the part 2, how did you feel?
I'm very excited. I'm just trying to see if you're going to sneak in a chart in the interval.
Yes. So that's going to be a secret, folks. So yeah, so you'll not get to know about it. But either ways, we'll come back with a part 2. Thank you.
Thanks, Ajib. Thank you.
Wow. I mean, that was something. Choosing a passion that is 180 degrees away from what your personality is, I don't think many of us would have the guts to do that. And that to stick on with it when you face so much rejection so early on, and continue to stick with that passion and go ahead and win 5 titles for Australia as Mrs. Australia, needs a big round of applause, Sangeetha Singh. There was so much more to talk with her, and we could not finish that in one episode. So stay tuned with us, and we'll be coming back with another episode with the Cool Karni, Sangeetha Singh. Thank you.